Okay. So you're going to notice that the thumbnail's a little different for this one. I went for symbology over consistency, but there's still some consistency in there too. The focus character, in my opinion of this, would be Cain. Even though he had his most defining moment in Volume 1, this is where Cain gets a lot more focus. Which is weird because he's as far away from home as he could possibly be. But there's a reason for the symbology here. You see, since Volume 1, Cain has been repeatedly checked on his hero complex, as well as his survivor's guilt. This entire time, he's been embodying what he believes a hero to be. Somebody who sacrifices of themselves for the greater good. Who basically unpersons themselves for the sake of the world at large. And yet at every turn, he's either told, how short-sighted and stupid that is, even by experienced people, like how he needs to think beyond just, dying as a hero for the sake of others' peoples. But also, he's been surrounding himself with people who are invested in whether he lives or dies, and while that's having the effect of inspiring them as that he wanted, it's been hard on him. Because he was used to heroing being very black and white. In the books, the hero just sacrificed of himself, and there was never really any fallout or consequences for it. And he's been slowly, especially while training with Rosa and hearing Rosa kind of repeatedly taunt him about how simplistic his worldview is, he's been struggling with this idea of his life would have been so much cleaner, so much simpler, so much more emotionally satisfying to him personally if he had died at the Crimson Keep. So, when we come into it 6 to 8 months later, after the events on the Eastern Continent and Zoge's abandoning of the team, we come in on the current capital, Regis, which, if you recall from the Scarlet's Roost, used to be the sister city of Valiance, where the royal family used to live. Well, Regis slowly began to take over as the military capital, and the royal family, figuring it's closer, it's better to be closer to your, well, it's not better to be closer to the front lines. The northern continent had known quite a bit of peace. So the northern capital monarchy decided it was better if they lived in the heart of their military power, especially because as time went on, even though the nobles were still in their place, they didn't have anywhere near the influence they had back in the old days of the Lightning Queen. They had enough influence and were corrupt enough where the royal family felt more comfortable being away from Valiance, which had become basically a commercial hub. There was a lot going on there, but it had become an industrial district. It had boomed, and then it had died. And what was once the crown jewel of the Empire in the form of Valiance had basically become modern-day Detroit. It was an economic capital. There's a lot of people from Valiance that are still working at factories, doing everything they can in the industrial districts to make ends meet. But the actual quality of life is much lower, and none of the rich and influential live there. So our team of remaining heroes, which is Amaranth, Cain, Opal, and Blaze, have split their focus between the two. And there's an intended reason for this. Thanks to Connor kind of tipping them in, and Connor told them that it was Zoge's idea to let them know a little bit of what's going on, and to keep them, to work with them and keep them in the loop. They are surprised, to say the least, because it takes them a few months to get their bearings, because only Opal's the one with any kind of grounding, and Opal has been basically disowned by her father. Like, when she came back, she was labeled as a pretender. She was a fraud, a stand-in. Zoge vouches for her, and he's provided a space for her to stay in Regis, but it's currently a debated topic whether or not she is legitimate or if she's somehow been being, molded and manipulated by Avario. Which, if you know anything about Kane, the first thing Kane did after about 2 months and figuring out that this Avario guy is definitely Zoge, despite the fact that he's cut his hair, no longer wears the jacket, no longer wears the hat, and is now in a nice, tasteful white suit. He knows his friend anywhere. And it took him a few months to figure out if, it was safe to approach. But, and Connor's like, well, you gotta figure that out yourself. That's the actual instructions you were given. Like, when you're ready, you'll figure it out yourself. Kane getting tired of the knockaround and not trusting Blaze anywhere near this, sends Blaze to go investigate what Olive's up to, because Olive is the only one that's been a non-factor here. She's been practically invisible since she went to the Northern Continent. Ember is right next to Avario at every social gathering. She's considered very well spoken, very eloquent, very well dressed, but also, like, intimidating to the common folk, like, and absolutely, like, she's fit into the role of nobility quite well. But she's disgusted by everybody when you actually see her at social gatherings. But Avario's actual intentions seem odd. Because even though he's living in Regis, all of his advertising for his new company, which is Oceana LeBlanc Limited, so OLL, he's sitting here talking up about this prosthetics technology, which is literally him taking Tannen's old designs and reworking them, but still, it's Tannen's designs, and he's now mass-producing them to help out the, injured veterans and the poor and things like that. And he's making it seem like it's all this charity work. He's like, and we even offer jobs to the disenfranchised from the many, shut down factories from Regis, right? Like, all the factory work and everything like that. Well, the heart of military power is here in Regis. The actual industrial sector is suffering, and countless people can't afford the high standard of living that the very few elites surrounded by the military can afford here in the city of Regis. And I just want to, let them know that they too can aspire to a higher standard of living. And on the surface, he's just as snide and corrupt as every other corpo in the entire city of Regis. But it's worse in the fact that nobody knows where he got his money from. And everybody in the corporate world is a little bit on their back foot, because you have this unicorn startup with very strangely advanced schematics in a very niche field that none of them had even been marketing to, so he's unchallenged in his market, coming with all this funding, and his value ballooned overnight, and he's claiming to be the firstborn son of the traitor Zoge and the once beloved queen. And he has proven his birthright by legal means, but everybody knows the corporate world, right? In the city of Regis, you can say you're anybody, and you can prove you're anybody, but it's different between what you can prove and what's fact. And they are intent on trying to suss him out somehow. They're trying to figure out his actual motivations. And Zoge just smiles, because his actual motivations are a bit more complicated. So Kane one day busts in the door and tries to get straight answers from Zoge, because he knows from talking to the people of Regis and the other people involved, just in general, like the word on the street, that while it is true he's offering these jobs, they're not sustainable. Like, they are sustainable for his company, but not for the people getting hired into them. He has a whole payment scheme that basically prevents them from... They get into debt from getting the prosthetic. That debt is paid from their pay, but there's interest on that basically matches their pay. He's training these people, teaching them real skills, but he has made them into literal debt slaves, and he has no remorse on this. And from the information that Blaze and Kane have gotten walking the streets, there's a lot of shady things going on that are beneficial to Avario. A lot of not just morally dubious, but outright illegal activity. And we're talking lots and lots of murders. And yet, these murders are done in such a way so as to expose the seedy, corrupt underbelly. And all these crimes are, like, the actual, people who are guilty of it, all the crimes are brushed under the rug. There's a whole lot of plausible deniability, destroyed evidence, nothing that's really conclusive to get anybody in trouble. And so nobody can prove Avario's involved, but you know how it is with people who are actually in the know. They go, yeah, this Avario kid he knows how these people are actually making their money behind the scenes. They are doing it, through their legit commercial businesses, but they're supplementing their personal income and getting more venture capital through things like human trafficking and organ harvesting and frickin' sending debt collectors to just break people's kneecaps and then making money off their medical bills. It's a whole racket where they basically view the common man like money piñatas and nothing else. And Avario is not much better with his debt slavery thing, but he frames it in a more productive manner. He's like, oh no, I all of you are simply crops. I am nurturing the field, and I will harvest when the time comes. And he doesn't put it in any of the official material, he doesn't put it in any of the training material, but some of the people who work security for him have heard him talking like this. And they are afraid to speak up because they know he's gotten people like he has hitmen. Nobody knows who the hitmen are, but he has hitmen. And that's how he keeps sending people to murder these human traffickers, to expose the illegal smuggling operation of arms in and out of the country, which may or may not be a problem depending on your perspective, but it's definitely something the royal family is not wanting these corporate nobles to do. Because it puts you at risk, it makes you a potential person who could commit treason. And while the corporate suits are able to do a lot to keep the military out of their business, when there's mass death, and it's made very, very viscerally visible, like, it is dramatic. This is some stuff you can't just completely ignore, because people will ask questions that, like, you literally can't just, what are you going to do, murder half the world, like, murder half the city's population just to hide some stuff that happened? No, you really can't. All you can do is come up with excuses and try and explain why 200 people disappeared overnight in this horrible house fire, including the guy 3 doors down who happened to own the building. It's that kind of thing. So Zoge is in the form of Avario. So I'm gonna have to refer to him as Avario. It's gonna be hard to switch, but it's a switch that's necessary. Avario has been doing all kinds of things, including creating his own personal military corporation. It's just his. It's OLL's security force, right? Just these disgruntled war veterans and crippled employees from your poor safety standards in your factories. I'm just training them to be my personal security. I've been having a hard time finding experienced duelists to hire because they're all just taken by better companies. So I figure if I just take a much larger number of people disenfranchised by your abusive acts and then train them in security, because I am a trained warrior. After all, I am the one who killed the dreaded Zoge LeBlanc. Because Zoge made sure to make a point of making him, because he kidnapped Opal. And so Olive did a little digging, a little bit of manipulation, and really pumped up the record of Zoge LeBlanc, and then had some traitor from the violent protest extremists murdered in his outfit, with Avario there, a clean white suit, to take the credit. He's like, I slayed Opal's kidnapper and brought her home safe. And Opal is like, no, that's not what happened, like, at all. Like, but she's like, she doesn't know what Zoge's doing, but because he's been a hero up to this point in time, she plays along. She's trying to trust him. and he seems friendly enough. When Kane goes to visit him, which I know I keep dancing around, Kane comes in to ask him what's going on. He goes, yeah, let's talk in my office, right? Like, it's good to see you. You're a treasured hero. You are the hero of the Crimson Keep. You are a wonderful, honorable man, and Opal speaks fondly of you. It's like, cut the crap. It's like, I am happy to meet a true hero. And he brings Kane into his office, of course makes it soundproof, and Kane goes off on one about, like, what the hell are you doing? You've just completely left the hero life behind you. You claim your hero self is murdered. You display the old coat and hat on display. And he goes, oh yeah, shoot, by the way, these are replications. I didn't want to damage or take away your coat, but I do owe it to you. So he snaps, and a member of the security force brings out the original coat. And he goes, look, I stitched my cloak onto the outside of that. You're more than happy to use it if you please. But this is your property, and I'm returning it with interest. And Kane's like, what are you doing? Because if you're up to something evil, I'm going to stop you. And Zoge goes, yeah, that's the point. Avario's like, that's why I want you guys to do what you do. I have no malice towards you. I have no intention of stopping you. You guys will do what it is in your nature to do. And me, for my part, I'm going to do what has to be done. If you believe me to be the villain, then do what comes naturally and do what you feel you must. Because the world needs heroes. And I, for one, don't intend to be one of them. And he won't elaborate further, but he's not being, mean to Kane. So Kane's completely confused. The friend who Kane literally lopped off an arm to try and save this man. And now he's unleashing a wave of death, misery, and, frickin' oppression that he cannot, in good conscience, say that he feels somewhat responsible for what Zoge's doing. And Zoge seems to be aware of this. In fact, he even brings attention to it once. He's like, everything I'm doing is only possible because you saved my life, which I'm very thankful for. I wouldn't have been able to prove my birth if not for the Black Armory, paradox gene that I have. Really does, kind of lend credence to my lineage. Makes it harder to call into question who I am. And Kane is completely at a loss. And he feels like he feels like Zoge isn't lying to him, but he also feels like he doesn't really have anywhere to go. He wants to believe his friend is doing this for the right reasons, or that there's some kind of mind control. But Zoge informs him, he's like, no. I actually have a chip implanted at the base of my neck that I designed that will protect me from the Lightning Queen's influence. In fact, if you want, I'm more than happy to provide it for you and your friends. Just in case. You never know, right? Just in case. And he's like, how did you get that knowledge? It's like, the crystal. I still have it. The light of knowledge, that's mine. I've been using it to help me. That's part of why my equipment is so immensely good and so cheap to build. And Kane's like, so you're just abusing it for personal gain? It's like, well, wouldn't any sensible, intelligent person with a little bit of capital and ancient but highly effective knowledge buried away from the rest of the world, wouldn't they turn a profit on it? Use that profit to turn around and benefit themselves and those they care about? Seems like an entirely rational line of thought to me. And Kane can tell there's more to this. But Zoge's not budging. He's not hesitating. He's smiling. He's genuinely happy to see Kane. There's no falsehood here. There's manipulation, and a lot of it. And Zoge knows that Kane knows that, but Kane still doesn't know what he's up to, which is good. Because Kane is in Zoge's mind, Kane is one of the most perceptive people he's ever met. Somebody who he can lie to himself, but Kane tends to be brutally honest with people, or at least able to tell when something's off. And if Kane is completely baffled and cannot punch holes in what he's saying, then that's good. That's everything's working as it should. And of course, we don't find out what Zoge is. We don't find out what Avario is up to until much later. See, I have to change it because I've been calling him Zoge for so long, so many years. Even in this state, I'm like, he's still Zoge, but he's not. He is Avario at this stage. But while he's doing this, Avario makes quite a few public appearances, and in all of them, the Queen seems to be heavily unsettled. Nobody knows why. And the weird part is, Avario seems to be ingratiating himself to the next princess, his cousin. He's like, "Oh, my dear cousin, you are the chosen one, you are destined to run this nation." But that's in another world, right? We all understand that you can't stop progress. And his cousin has no frickin' clue what's going on with it. She's happy to met her cousin Avario, but she can tell he's sleazy. She can tell he's doing all kinds of horrible things, and she's disconcerted because she doesn't sense any guilt. There's no remorse in this man. And so... And I wanted to call her Lucy, and so I'm going to stick with that for now. But Princess Lucy, she is disconcerted, and so she approaches Kane after this confrontation, which Avario leaked to the appropriate sources for them to know. But Lucy approaches Kane and the rest of the group to try and, help them with their investigation to figure out what's going on. Especially because she had heard their names before from Contrassa, who, while she's still on house arrest, Diamond had always spoken well of, right? So Dia speaks highly of Contrassa, who's still on house arrest. And so that's what's going on with that. And the group comes in and out of their apartment in Rigas all the time, and so they do get to share information. But this is where we get back to what's going on in Valiance. Valiance, which is now modern-day Detroit, has a different branch of the political activist group. One of the people that Olive had been working with in the Southern Continent, who was a side character until this exact moment, and I do mean that, even up to this point in time, wasn't important. But his name was Sable. And he calls his group, he calls his group Sable, the Sable Pack. But it's a very... Because there's been so many two-timed, two-faced, deceptive people in the political movement right now, he figured that he could preserve the ideals his family fought for by kind of cutting his group off from the main branch and just focusing on building strong relationships in the immediate activist group he's in. He's not exactly a splinter group, but he's very careful about who he trusts with what he's doing. And he's been running a lot of charity work in Valiance, trying to, make sure all the Beastkin have what they need. And heck, even if he meets a non-Beastkin that's not doing so well, they will take them and they'll add them to their repertoire, because he genuinely does believe in the cause that by being higher quality people, they don't ever have to worry about being looked down as half monster ever again. And he refuses murder, period, outright. Especially after what happened in the Southern Continent, he just doubled and tripled down. He's like, he was just an activist down there at the time, and he was kind of with that movement, but he was trying to convince his friends that they needed to stop. And he was doing a lot of charity work even on the Southern Continent. So it's very consistent with him. So it's very internally consistent for him to be that guy who goes, look, I didn't kill people then, I'm not killing people now. I understand the unrest, and we need to be very active and not just passive. But we need to be very active in our kindness and our charity work. We cannot allow violence to become an acceptable form of discourse, or it will openly become another Lotus War. We can't have that. Nobody wants that. We're not doing it. And Olive has been, whether he likes it or not, Olive has been providing resources and help to him. And he's been trying to decline it, but every action he has seen Olive doing, and all the actions that are connected to him, have all been ones of just charity work and support. He will not openly associate with her, he will not coordinate with her, but she drops all these care packages off all the time. And he has no logic, he has no sensible reason to decline people the resources they need just because he thinks something suspicious is going on. He doesn't know what Olive's doing, but all the supplies she gives are entirely on the level. It's provided with receipts and everything. So he doesn't know what she's doing, or what the organization known as Olivine is doing, but the Sable Pack is entirely separate and actively makes a point to condemn Olivine for their willingness to use violence. Which the members of Olivine laugh at because they're used to that by now. It's been nearly 2 years. It's not quite 2 years, but it's been nearly 2 years. They understand nobody wants to openly condone murdering people. But that doesn't change the fact that the people who are a part of Olivine see it as a necessary action to remove the extremism, and they are not going to doubt themselves, the same way their leader doesn't. So there's this tension within this of like two anti-violent terrorist factions are now still, they're working together, but not really. And what's worse is that when it comes to Opal coming to visit, she's like, it's your cousin that's putting a lot of us into these like contracts that we can't, like, that my people can't escape from. Like, we joined up in hopes of getting the help we needed, but the instant we signed on to get those prosthetics to get our lives back, we were trained into his personal army. The man is amassing weapons at a terrifying rate, but doing so in a way that can't be traced without a million other corporations being exposed for illegal smuggling. And he doesn't even know how the hell he's getting these kill squads going, because it's none of his people. None of the Beastkins are doing it. So he has something else going on. And so Sable starts going, look, I don't know if I can trust you because of who your family is. But I want to try to trust you. Mr. Avario LeBlanc has worked so hard to ingratiate himself to you and everybody else. But he's up to some shady crap. And Kane this entire time is hearing about the mass deaths, hearing about these corruptions, hearing about the amassing of weapons. And then he finally hears the story. After all this time, people in the North are so used to it being common knowledge that Kane spent 8 months just not asking. He was so focused on trying to figure out what Zoge was doing that he didn't stop to wonder why Avario would be doing this. And so he's told the story about the rumors, the myths, that Lady Porcelain was not so beloved until the death of her dear sister at the hands of the traitorous Zoge Oceana. The Oceana family cut ties with the dear Lord Zoge, and now the Oceana Incorporated is the third greatest capital in the whole world, run by the husband of the late Dia the Third. And at her request, he is going to continue, moving that way. It's like, Kane had no idea about any of this. He didn't ask anybody. And when he finally gets to talk to Opal, he's like, so what exactly is going on with all this? And she kind of explains that she doesn't know whatever happened to her mom. But her mom had been killed off quite some time ago. And after the death of her father kind of disconnected from the rest of the family. Even when he's talking with their youngest brother, it doesn't seem to be loving. It is literally to shape an heir. And it's gone, whether it's due to psychological abuse or just grooming, the kid has gone full bore, right? During the course of the 8 months since Avario's return, Opal's father was killed under mysterious circumstances, and her younger brother took over the corporation, which is another reason why Avario is being disavowed, why he's being claimed as a traitor. Because her youngest brother, the dear boy, Zirconium is what it is, but yeah, Zur has inherited the company. Zur is running the damn thing. And he has no issue with that. No issue with his father being killed. He'll put on a show in public, like any good noble is. But behind closed doors, he was a short-sighted old man with no vision of the future, no recognition of the consequences of what was going on around him. And it's during all of this, after 8 months, that Cain begins to try and think. And he fails. He really does. He fails. He's like, I know something's going on. I know these things have to be connected. They just have to be. I'm going to figure it out. But Opal, upon really thinking about all this when put together, and in line with what she had heard from Sable's pack, she begins to realize that Avario is actively trying to accelerate whatever the Lightning Queen was doing. He's nurturing civil unrest by pissing off the other corporate people, by interfering with their affairs, cleaning up in the process by killing all the slavers and human traffickers. So he's pissing off all the people who run corporations that are being seedy and bullcrap. He's pissing off the queen by trying to ingratiate himself to the princess, and by interfering with her relations with the other, and just being there, frankly. But interfering with her relations with the corporations, and just being there. He's pissing off the princess by just being a totally untrustworthy sleazebag. And he's causing civil unrest among the Beastkin by pressing them into these seemingly beneficial arrangements, only to make them into his own private military that they can't really escape from. And when they try, there are consequences. They are visited by enforcers. Enforcers that are plausibly, deniably connected to somebody else, but enforcers nonetheless. And so he's sitting here going like, Opal puts together that he's up to something. He's seeding this and trying to get the Lightning Queen's attention. He's putting all the little seeds out there to get her attention, which is odd because he had said that they could only get away without being noticed one time. So what is he doing now by making as much noise as he possibly can? It seemed odd, and she couldn't figure out what it is, but she wanted to get him to be honest with her. So Opal approaches him and he goes, "Oh, dear cousin, how are you?" And she approaches him and goes, "Look, Avario, I don't know why you're doing it, but I know you're trying to get the attention of Lightning Queen. And you know what she does. She destabilizes a whole area and just tries to..." And he goes, "Yes, I know. Thank you. Thank you for confirming with me that I'm not the only one who understands. If even you can notice that I am actively trying to stir her attention, I'm sure she's seen it." And she goes, "Why? Why would you do any of this? What is your goal?" And he goes, "It's simple. I mean, it's obvious, right? I'm getting her attention." And Opal's like, something you did when you touched that crystal, you found out how to beat her." He's like, "I have an idea. I have a decent idea. And I know what I'm going to do. I know exactly how I'm going to preserve the whole world. And it starts like this. It starts by starting the end of the kingdom. I am going to destroy the existing structure completely. And I want you to try to stop me." And she's like, "Well, I'm going to stop you right here." And she challenges him to a duel. And he laughs and goes, "Oh, a friendly sparring match with my cousin. I'm all for this. Absolutely." And she tries going all out. She really does. It's a whole thematic scene. She's using her rapier. She's using her cryokinesis not only to make platforms, but to try and attack him from range, to try and entrap him, to try and change the terrain. Every trick she can possibly think of. And his black armory has an answer for all of it, because it's basically hers with the only limitation that he has to be touching it. And since she's clever, smart, and capable, but he's a sociopathic hyper genius. So he's got more than enough answers for her. And when he's finally bested her, and you'd think, oh, this is the moment where he's going to do the villainous thing, he turns her rapier back to her, hands her back, and goes, "All right, run along now. Go ahead. Go stop me." And she's like, "If you want me to stop you, you're going to have to..." "Oh, I'm not going to kill you. You're too important to my plan. So go along, run along, go stop me." And he turns and walks back to his office like it was nothing. Like she was nothing. she is beneath him at this stage. Whatever he's doing, he's operating at such a high level that she's not even a part of that. And during that, you have two figures, Argent and Couvert. Argent is one of the disgruntled employees from the security force, and Couvert is simply just a common. It's just a common folk, just a normal person giving them the lay of the land. And here's where I start to pull the curtain back, because it's Lady Porcelain, after realizing that he's restructuring his corporate headquarters into this. He's not only financially captured and bought every single manufacturer for the military, but he's turned his personal headquarters into an actual base. Like, it's a military base at this point. And seeing no other choice, she begins to fear that he's going to try and have her killed, that he's out for revenge, that the ghost of her past deeds has come to haunt her. And when she approaches the Lightning Queen to try and, like when she puts feelers out to try and get the attention of the Lightning Queen, she's given no response. Oh, the message was received, but she's not given a response. Disconcerted that her strongest ally is gone, she is concerned. But it isn't until the assassins that Avario has been using kill Zirconium. It's not until they get into that establishment and kill him that she really feels like she's been cornered. And you may say, like, why would he kill Zirconium? It's like, yeah, it's an excellent question. Why would he? And so Zoge has this whole military base he's made for himself. Zirconium has been killed through plausible deniability, leaving Opal the only real successor left, that or Diamant in the military that's been financially captured by OLL. And she's feeling quite cornered. So, suspecting that he was after her next, she retreats with her guards to a safe house, an old church an old church out in the wilderness, in the far abandoned northern section of Rigas. Just a part of what was before the economic boom that made Rigas what it is, you know? And as she's going there seeking some kind of shelter, it's right about that time that the fallout from the death of Zur is also occurring. In all of this, the princess has been tagging along with Cain, Opal, Blaze, and Amaranthine. And all four of them were currently in the town of Valiance talking with Sable about, any movements he's currently seeing. And he was saying, like, he was aware there was going to be an assassination attempt, so as the news is playing that, Lucy sees the broadcast and goes, oh no, like, the queen could not be reached for comment. And she's like, he's after my mom next. And it's like, okay, we're going to just, like, revenge isn't Zoge's thing. So I don't know why he would do that, but we're gonna do that. And as they're getting ready to mobilize, a pre-recorded message plays. Keep in mind, what's about to be played is going on at the same time as what's going to happen to the queen in the church. Pre-recorded message from Avario LeBlanc, where he lays out all the evidence. Where he lays out that Zur had made a deal with the Lightning Queen himself. And Avario is going to make one too. But that the queen, the current queen, Queen Porcelain, had slain his mother and his father, and framed his father for treason, all to benefit herself, all to gain the love and adoration and respect of the people, and in doing so drove the entire nation into the ground, a financial hole from which it could not escape, and hid behind a militaristic state to do so. I am taking the crown back. And that's what his words say. But his eyes say something different. His eyes imply something else. And this is where we go to the other half of what's going on, the behind the scenes. Well, first, let's finish up what's going on in the church. The guards did not know what Lady Porcelain had done. They didn't know about the assassination plot. They bought into the Zoge as a traitor thing, hook, line, and sinker. But the audio from this announcement was played into the church, freezing her blood. And the guards are like, there's no way, this is all false lies. And then he clears his throat, makes himself known, and states, "Yes, inform them if you would. Did you have my mother killed?" And she wants to respond, she wants to cover for herself. But this is all of her worst nightmares at once. Not only did her sister still end up dying, which she had hoped she could avoid. She hoped that if Luna had survived, she could have escaped it. But she had news. She knew Luna had been killed at the end of Volume 2. And now her nephew was coming back not just for revenge, but revealing her as the liar she has always been. Exposing her publicly, with records, with docs, on TV for everybody to see. Just completely destroying the credibility of Porcelain herself. And because he's so thorough, what's not said is that Lucy is clean. Lucy has been keeping her nose clean and has been out of the fray entirely. And every public statement he's ever made about her is his admiration and respect for her. And so he's sitting here, and as she's frozen in fear and panic, not knowing how to respond, he goes, "You see, that's the thing about cowards. Even if they have strong positions, they will abandon them at the first sign of danger." And the guards, of course, try to protect the queen. And they are, all but one of them is slain. And that last one is frickin' made to watch some of the most visceral, destructive, painful deaths possible. And with that last one, he goes, "What I want you to do is I want you to go out there and tell everyone what you saw here, what I was willing to do, that I'm a monster who has kidnapped the queen, and that I will be headed to my empire." And the knight runs away. And Porcelain tries, reasoning with him, "Oh, it doesn't have to go this way, we can still..." And he goes, "This isn't about you." The scary facade melts away almost instantly and becomes the cold, calculating machine he has always been. He goes, "Look, I'm not here for any of this, but I needed to put on a show to get the desired effect from them. I'm here for what's on the back of your hand. You see, I know that they wouldn't have just left that information with anybody, and that the royal family was the first to harvest information from the crystal. The only people who could be trusted and well protected enough to keep the keys to the vault up here is you guys. But I know the nature of your key better than you do, and so I'm going to make sure that the thing that's in the vault here, the staff of creation, I'm going to make sure that goes where it needs to go. And I'm going to make sure you can't get out of responsibility for what you've done, any more than I can." And he refuses to elaborate. He knocks her unconscious and transports her via a cargo shuttle as swiftly, a modified cargo shuttle, same one actually, heavily modified, right to his main corporate headquarters. A giant pillar of progress in the middle of Regas, surrounded by automated turrets and with a trained military force around it. And with the sheer amount of outrage and concern and anger, the military wants to act, but they can't. He has the queen as hostage. If they make one wrong move, he can just straight up kill her. The fact that he's not actively mobilizing his military into the town makes it so they can't really run a defensive war either. All they can do is maintain a perimeter. This is now a hostage situation. And there's not much they can do in that regard. Opal, hearing about this, looking at her cousin, her now half-cousin, legal cousin, whatever you want to call it, Lucy, having a minor panic attack, turns to Sable and asks for his help. Not with killing, but with saving a life. Like, if you guys help us step up and protect the innocent civilians and get the queen back, I'm sure it'll look great in the eyes of everybody, and we can make this work. And Sable's like, I have very little reason to believe this isn't you luring me into a trap, but you've got honest eyes. I honestly don't think anybody saw he was going to do this. So we're going to do what we can to mobilize. It's going to take a couple hours to get everybody ready, but we'll mobilize in force to go help. Diamond, a part of, after going through all this, she approaches Contrassa and says, one of your former students is doing a coup d'etat, but it doesn't seem right. And Contrassa's like, what do you mean? She goes, he's claiming to be my lost cousin, Avario. And Contrassa kind of puts two and two together and goes, that might actually be true, though. He is from the library. He's old enough. If they were going to hide a kid, that would have been a great cover. And Diamant goes, if that is true and he's my cousin, then he's making a huge mistake and we need to do something to stop him. And it's like, what do you expect me to be able to do? I'm disgraced and house arrested and accused of treason. It's like, you remember our old mentor? He's been retired for about a year now, since just before the fall of the Crimson Keep, frankly. Well, I mean, after the fall of the Crimson Keep. I'm trying to keep my timeline straight. But yeah, just after the fall of the Crimson Keep, he eventually retired. But he still has strings he can pull. So she's like, I know that you know he can pull some strings to clear your name. Like, if he could, why didn't he do it sooner? It's like, because he really wasn't sure, and he didn't want to make things harder on anybody. He's the reason you're on house arrest instead of just being kept in a prison cell. And she's like, fine, we're gonna do this. And there's a whole mini arc between Diamond and Contrassa, but since it's a mini arc, I'll summarize it this way. Contrassa's in house arrest. As she goes through stuff, she's finding evidence of her father's corruption. She gives that to Diamond. That information helps them to recover and find Contrassa's sister, who then teases her and makes fun of her for her girl crush, and the two bicker and everything like that. But Contrassa just goes, this is the greatest thing you have done for me, bringing my sister home. And then they proceed to trash the mansion while fighting each other, but that's a whole separate thing. And in all of that, Contrassa's diary goes flying out the window, and Diamond picks it up for some interesting reading. But she goes, look, I know you're not a huge fan of the military, but given everything that's been going on, we need somebody like you to help us. And you can't help us from the Scarlet Order side at all. Because the Scarlet Order, when Zoge started moving up, he actually did everything he could to press the Scarlet Order into either ineffectualness or just out of the continent. It just made it impossible for them to operate, so they had to go into the countryside. Probably over to the old Scarlet's Roost Tavern, frankly, but that's neither here nor there. Because that's the only corporate entity that the Scarlet Order owns, and it, in my opinion, is probably it's always been in the top 500. Let's just leave it at that. Not only for its legacy, but because they didn't really have to change the recipe very much over the years. Just the branding. Update the branding, update the marketing, keep everything else the same. It's solid. Nobody's gonna question that, especially because it's associated with a folk hero and a legend with like a proven track record of being that way. So while they haven't had much growth, they've maintained market stability for ages, for centuries. The only way that which they scaled up was expand to other continents, but that's a whole separate thing. So, what we know is that Lady Porcelain, Queen Porcelain, has the key to the Northern Vault on her. And it's like, okay, so Zoge's trying to get into the vault. Clearly, he built his headquarters over the vault. And, well, efforts have been made to go into Valiance and do a massive restructure on a particular building and to bring an entire room from that building into his corporate headquarters, everybody just assumed that this was some kind of, billionaire flexing nonsense. And Scarlet Order had already been pushed to the countryside by then, so they didn't really have much ground, if any, to interfere with his efforts. That was why he had to push them out in the first place, so he could move a particular room from a particular old building into his corporate, into the penthouse suite of his corporate utopia. And the general idea had been that he was clearly he had clearly moved the vault into his place, and upon further inspection by the people who know things, like Rosa, it's implied that he's either trying to turn it over to the Lightning Queen or trying to lure her up there with the very things she wants, so she has no choice but to meet him face to face, right? He has a relic already that he's been being very quiet about. Nobody knows where he's storing it. Not even Ember. Even Ember Autumns has no clue where he's hiding it. And he says that's for the best. If the only person who knows where it is, then she has to come confront me. And, so, when the Queen comes to, he lets her know, it's like, very soon, the Lightning Queen is going to come visit my little citadel here. And that's when the plan starts really kicking off. And I'm sorry I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but this isn't about revenge. It doesn't matter. You never mattered. This is about saving the world. And if I have to be a monster to do it, I will. But for what it's worth, if it makes you feel less guilty, I'm glad that revenge just happened to be along my path. I'm glad that it was just the most efficient move that I personally be the one to see this through with you. 'Cause you are a horrible, hollow, and empty person, and you deserve all of this. And she's sitting here trying to make her case, and he's just blocking her out. And he starts going on his monologue. And this is equivalent to his monologue. It's like, you see, the Lightning Queen believes herself to be a god. And she appeals to the ego and the selfish base wants of these people. She knows that if she promises you the world, you won't be looking at her when she jams the knife into your back. She knows that she can get you to kill everybody you care about before she puts one in your skull because you're too happy with the treasure she wiggled in front of you. Treasure she would gladly throw into a frickin' junkyard without a second thought. Because what she's after isn't treasure, glory, fame. She is after death, decay, and destruction. And he explains that from the crystal's knowledge that he gained, he's aware that she may have at one point in time been a highly accurate, well-shaped replica of Lady Violetta. But now, due to the damage that was done to her runic network, she is just rogue. She is just a rogue force of death and destruction with nothing else on her mind. No memories of her previous life, otherwise she wouldn't have needed the light of knowledge. No understanding of her mission beyond kill. And so, she wants all this power to kill more effectively. She is high on a god complex, but has no idea what it means to truly nurture and cherish the world. And he explains that the blood of the field is watered by martyrs, for lack of a better explanation. That the stories that live forever are not the stories of people who lived happily ever after and then was found in, doing a cocaine overdose in a bathroom somewhere. The stories that get told forever are people who died in their prime, or retired before the darker sides of them could become known. People who left a legacy and knew when to leave the stage. And that was his intention even now. Everybody here is innocent, but they will fight tooth and nail to defend their homes, and they will die heroes when the eventual assault comes. But him? He's the madman and the monster who put them in the firing line. The one who tried to kill their queen, who butchered people heartlessly, who murdered countless people, And even though if it was some of them were human traffickers, it doesn't matter. He created a corporate dystopia landscape, destroyed the economy, and monopolized all of the military kit at all. Like, really, it's like he has actively done everything he can to be the worst kind of person. And all of it to lure the Lightning Queen here. Not because he thinks she'll trust him, but because what he's done is too curious to ignore. He's feeding her need for destruction. He's causing the destruction, which is odd for somebody who should know more now. It's weird for somebody who just ruined her plans by being invisible to suddenly help her plans. But hey, who is she going to be to turn down an opportunity to get everything for free? And when she inevitably kills him, it's gonna be great, right? Like, that's the idea. And if he can be useful in getting the final treasures, more power to him, right? Like, I mean, she can use him, she will. If she can't, she'll kill him, and he knows this. He's more than aware of this, and he's counting on it. And he knows that she is aware that he knows that. She knows this could be a trap, but she's a god. To quote one of my favorite lines from Morrowind, how can you kill a god? It's such a intoxicating naivete. She believes herself immortal because she's using vessels, she's using other bodies, she's, finding these ways to work around it. And he knows that she's not. But he knows that there's a specific way she has to be eliminated. And just doing the usual stuff to kill people, chopping off heads, all of that stuff, it's not going to be what does it. And her influence will not fade just because she's gone. So if he really wants to do his job of saving the world, he has to be willing to have the world hate him for it. He has to be willing to sacrifice all the goodwill, all of the reputation he has built as a hero, everything he has worked hard on to try and make the world a better place. He has to sacrifice all of that to do one really big thing and get everybody's support behind the heroes. In order to expose the Lightning Queen to everybody and make her more than a myth but an active known danger, he had to do everything he did to engineer this, to force her into the open and accelerate this beyond what she would do if she was taking her time. He had to force her hand and make her make a mistake by giving her bait too juicy to turn down. And the Queen's like, are you just going to handle the relic? He goes, that's not what you need to know right now. Do you want to talk to your daughter? She goes, yes, of course I want to talk to her. Good, excellent, here. You can talk to your daughter. He hands over a communication device with visual feed on it and everything. And she calls her daughter and goes, you okay? Yeah, I don't know why he hasn't killed me yet, but I need to tell you that and as she's talking about this and she's having this wonderful touching moment with her daughter, he cuts her head clean off with the longsword Cain gave him all those years ago. As Cain is watching and Lucy is watching, he murders the Queen. And as he does that, the Queen herself, the Queen, the Lightning Queen, begins to make her approach towards his citadel. You see, she had gathered a group of monsters to attack the city, just, make it look like it's a series of unrest. Hide herself under this guise of, if I kill everybody who sees me, and everybody sees monsters eating corpses, nobody will think twice about me being here. And if I bring I'm not going to risk my vessel, but if I bring a whole bunch of monsters in, I don't have to. He thinks he's got all these broken people strong enough, like, all these broken shells that he's stitched back together are not strong enough for her beasts, right? And so she approaches, in a way he knew she would. Turrets shooting every beast, his security forces utterly useless against not only her slightly growing abilities, but also her endless onslaught of wildlife, right? And he's like, good, excellent. Can't have it be too easy, have to have her fight her way up here. But you see, when he chopped the Queen's head off, when he chopped off the head of Queen Porcelain, the key on the back of her hand vanished. And that was because he had specifically engineered these devices to be an excellent conduit for the key to transfer, using an emergency protocol. And that emergency protocol built into the key is that if it has the means of connecting with somebody that is a trusted, like if it has a means of traveling directly to, safely, somebody that is trusted by the current holder at the moment of death, it will use that channel through which to escape. So he created a channel that the key would recognize and prepared for this in advance. He Batmaned the frick out of this. He spent those months were spent using his knowledge from the crystal to engineer everything he needed to make this plan work. And the obvious plot hole here, and it's not a plot hole, it is intentional by Zoge. As I said earlier, just killing the Lightning Queen wouldn't actually solve the problem. But the idea being right now that the Lightning Queen could be killed right here. This is the exact moment where if Zoge had walked a different road or had thought differently, he could have literally just killed the Lightning Queen here, and then all he'd have to deal with her is the power vacuum created by her minions. But he had a different plan. He was thinking many, many more steps ahead. So what he did is so much worse for her. And he and Ember had been getting character moments throughout the whole arc of just her helping him with the plan. And it's right about this time when he's revealing his plans that it also comes to light that because Olive approaches the group of heroes wearing the outfit of the reported assassins. And Olive goes, yeah. So Olivine, specifically me and a few very trusted people who could be discreet, have been carrying out Zoge's orders to assassinate these corpos because all of their human trafficking was beastkins. And it's one of those things where we were more than happy to shed blood and blame it not only on the active terrorists going on here, but just generally speaking, killing frickin' slaving bigots. We were more than happy for that. And we made a big bloody show of it and dragged people into the streets in ways that couldn't really be addressed without exposing what was going on. And so we made sure that everything we did wasn't secret. It was just too messy for anybody to openly explain that we were doing it. But we made a point that every single one of them was to know that it was Avario's plan. That Avario was the one who butchered them, that he knew what they were doing, and they couldn't do a damn thing about it. And he kept doing it that way, too. Actively baiting them with the, I know everything you're doing. I know how to stop you. And I could do it any time I want. And you can't do anything. And you know it. And the ones that had genuinely good intentions would approach him in private and apologize for what was discovered. Whether they knew it or not, whether they knew they were involved or not, but still denounce him for his actions. And he would tell them the same thing every time. If you truly feel bad for what was discovered, or if you truly weren't involved with what was discovered, then you'll put your support behind Princess Lucy. Because she's going to need every bit of help, because this corruption happened under the watchful eye of Queen Porcelain. And that's going to need to change. And I will not stop until we have changed it. And then maybe I will simply vanish into the aether. Who knows? Just really painting, really gussying it up. And so Olive has been operating as an assassin. Ember and Zoge have been drawing closer. And it's not typical flirting. It's not like the usual thing. But it's this genuine kind of two nerds geeking out over their cunning tactical plans. And their 5 steps aheadedness. Because it turns out that Argent and Cuvier were entirely artificial beings. There were 2 experimental warriors, both of which end up dying in the fight against the Lightning Queen. Which is a part of the plan as well. They were programmed to do that. And Ember knew about that. Ember knew about that part of the plan. That they were to collect information, and they were to keep eyes on the people that were interested parties in all of this. What she didn't know until this attack began, and an automated message played in her transport, which, conveniently, the kill switch was sent to the ignition at the same time. She did not know what his end game plan was. And he makes clear that it's like, look, if there was any way that I could have survived this, I would have. I would have, because the more I can live, the more things I can do. And I wanted to spend a lot more time with you. I really did enjoy our time together. But the more I crunched the numbers, the more it became obvious that this was a one-way trip for me. That the only way this could end for me is death. Now, if I can somehow fight the odds and escape with my life, I will. Don't get me wrong, that's something I will do. But since it's far more likely that I will die, and die in disgrace, I need your help with accomplishing the last parts of my plan. Don't worry about Regis, don't worry about Valiance, don't worry about the Lightning Queen. I have the Lightning Queen on lock, and my friends, who have done exactly as I would have had them do, being heroes, helping the public, putting on a good show in the public eye, they've done everything I've needed them to do. They get to denounce me as a villain, clean their hands of me, because Zoge is dead, and I've proven that to them. But I have an experiment that I need your help with, because after we're done here, she's going to wake up. And it will be your job to make sure she has what she needs. And what he means by this is that every scientist has a secret lab. Every single one has a backup secret lab other than the obvious one, right? Some secret basement project that they're keeping from everybody. And what Zoge had done was he was using Cuvier and Argent as the eyes and ears of this artificial life, giving Argent and Cuvier some base personality to make them blend in and be, acceptably human, but not really intelligent in the traditional sense. They're not sentient. They had programmed responses, and they had the ability to kind of generate responses on the fly for some more generic information. But in the secret murder... I was going to say secret murder basement, but there's no actual death going on down there, which is hilarious, given how much Avario has been killing a lot of people. In his secret lab, there is one of the most... currently one of the most important characters in the entire of In Perpetua, sitting in a test tube downstairs. Her name is Aurea. She is artificial in every sense. She is made of metal and circuits and runic networks, and inside of her is the crystal known as the Light of Knowledge, sitting in her chest. And that is her database, right? That's the heart of her knowledge, is that. And you pair that up with the information Cuvier and Argent collected as her kind of eyes and ears. And the last message that Zoge has for her is different than it is for Ember. He tells her, it's like, hey, your name is Aurea, because I genuinely believe in the value of having a good heart. I don't have one. I am an empty shell. But you have the potential to be so much more than that. So I want you to take a look at all of the heroes that you've interacted with through Argent Cuvier. And I want you to ask yourself about the good that comes from this. Even as you see tragedy and pain unfold, I want you to ask yourself why these people continue to move forward, and what good they have, what good influence they have done on other people. Because right now, I have to trust in their nature. I'm going to die. And I'm never going to know if my plan succeeded. But I die confident that my friends will defeat the Lightning Queen and save the day. I want you to find out why I'm that confident. And I know that if you do, you will know how to use your abilities responsibly. And she takes that to heart. Weirdly enough, she has more of one than her father, but Aurea takes that to heart when she's released. And she's a bit naive, a bit gentle, a bit sheltered, a bit confused, because she's just been born, right? She's a fully developed brain-wise due to her extensive knowledge base and her experience through Cuvier and Argent, but she's still... This is her first time interacting with the world. And the first thing she was gifted is a long flowing coat similar to Kane's, but it's all white with red piping and red lining. And she will continue to wear this coat or some variation of this color scheme the rest of her life. To her, it is the closest thing to being blood related to her father. And she's designed to look like a blend between Zoge and Ember. And in his message to Ember, he goes, I know it's not right of me to just force this upon you, but we now have a daughter. Her name is Aurea LeBlanc. And she's going to need some artifacts before she's able to properly resolve this. But I want you to help her in any way you can. And just know that I know we've been through a lot together, but this is how we make everything we've been through worth it. Everything we've ever done, every path we've ever walked. This is how we fix it. This is how we make up for it. This is how we leave our impact on the world. And I'm sorry I didn't get to spend more time with you. She's pissed off, obviously. Amber is absolutely livid. Because how fucking dare he just get himself killed? Fuck him. But it's really kind of that mourning rage, because she knew that he was doing something. This entire time, she knew there was something going through his brain. He was processing, and there was a lot he wasn't telling her. But she just figured, hey, he's gonna tell me eventually. He wouldn't leave me in the dark if there wasn't a good reason for it. And she was 100% right, but not in the way she wanted to be. So now we get to the actual big to-do. And yeah, there's so many, Volume 3 is, to me, storytelling-wise, the best part of this saga. I think you'll notice that right now we are currently not at the 2-hour mark we were with Volume 2. And that's because a lot of it is character beats and moments that, take up a lot of space but really deepen the bond here. So, the Volume 3 would mostly be a lot of character beats and character moments, kind of really enriching this build-up to Zoge's ultimate reveal of what he had been doing. So yeah, me calling him Zoge is not a slip of the tongue, because when he's talking to Ember in this and in a later scene, he's... What remains of Zoge is seen. But as far as the story goes, the man who dies is Avario, because Zoge died at the end of Volume 2. So, Zoge kills his aunt, specifically to transfer the key to his cousin. Because the key cannot be here. The key needs to be where the Staff of Creation is being kept. Well, he made a big old show, and he's done what he can to create a replica. A functional replica of what the vault would look like. This is not the actual vault, nor is it where the staff is being kept. So the Lightning Queen cuts through his defenses, kills all the people he had in indentured servitude. Mass murder, mass death, monsters everywhere. Our heroic team enters the city to try and save the Queen, and comes across all these monsters, which shows to the people like Kane, who couldn't pick up on it at first, that his goal was to draw out the Lightning Queen. Because these monsters just showing up at this moment is very weird. Cuvier and Argent end up dying in this. Cuvier in the initial wave of monsters, because Cuvier is just a normal commoner. And Argent in the follow-up fight trying to break in. And they're killed in such a way where, it would be impossible to inspect their bodies for quite some time, even if you knew it was them. Lightning Queen makes her way there and follows the massive elevator directly up to the penthouse suite. And she walks in and sees the corpse of the Queen freshly killed. And goes, oh, okay. So why are you denying me my rightful prize? And he goes, oh, I'm not. In fact, here. And he holds up a glove that he made. He's like, I have the runic network right here. You can go ahead and use it if you'd like. And he tosses her the glove. Go ahead, open that. She goes, all right. This is not what I expected from the man who stole pieces off my board and involved himself in my game. He goes, I know, that's intentional. And she walked over and she opened the door. And it was empty. No big reveal, no theatrical present, just an empty room. And she turns back, knowing he doesn't have the staff or he would have used it, and goes, you're mocking me. And he goes, yeah. All of this was just to get you here. Just so I can tell you that you're going to die. There is no ending to this story where you live. She goes, really? And he goes, yep. No, the moment you came here, you sealed your fate. She goes, really? A lowly man, thinking he's a god, standing on the peak of the world, builds a giant symbol to his own ego, does everything he can to get my attention, just to spit in my face. You are so much less than I thought you were. Do you even consider how many lives you've ended today? And he goes, yeah, no, I have. All of them worthy sacrifices to bring you here. And this irks her. Some part of her that's still like Violetta hates the reckless disregard for living things that he is showing. Yes, she wants to kill all life, but not... It means something, damn it. Life is precious. That's why ending it is so important. And so she smiles and she walks up to him and laughs. And he starts laughing with her. And then she jams her hand through his chest and grabs his heart. And she holds it up to his eyes, which his smile has not broken yet, by the way. She holds it up to his eyes and goes, you know, if you had used this, you might have lived a little bit longer. And she kicks him against the wall. All the tendons are ripped out. He's quickly bleeding out. And he laughs, and he laughs, until it eventually fades. She's like, that's the way it should be, you know? Horrible people dying for being terrible people. And she didn't think twice about the fact he didn't use his paradox gene, that he didn't try and fight her with the Black Armory. He didn't even try stabbing her. She doesn't think twice about that. She's a goddess. Maybe he was just smart enough to know it was a waste of his time. And as she's stepping out, Avario gets one last burst of energy. And he smirks at her and says, have a nice fall. And he pushes a button on his glove. She is impaled with giant, like, barbed hooks. You know how, like, there's arrows with barbs? So it's like fish hooks, for lack of a better explanation. But you know how it's like the whole goal is that it pierces and then it grabs? So that way you can't really escape it. Harpooning is probably the most accurate illustration. But she gets harpooned from, like, 12 different angles, all intersecting inside the elevator booth. And the elevator cable snaps, and she goes into free fall. And the entire tower goes through a controlled demolition. And she doesn't just drop to the ground floor, she drops further than that. She drops all the way down into a pit made just for holding her. And the controlled demolition of the building causes all the rubble to fall on top of her, burying her ludicrously deep in the ground. Zoge, of course, dies. So Avario's body is dead. And while he is buried in the rubble, because he was at the top, he's very easily discovered. It's one of those things where he fell relatively early on, but due to the trajectory and the amount of debris above him, he was one of the first bodies to be found. And as far as the people at large know, dude's a regicidal maniac who killed the queen and then himself and then buried everything. Claiming something about a lightning queen. But there's a video that was produced first for the military, just involving surveillance footage that was taken of his exchange with the Lightning Queen, to get a good look at her. And he explains that from his knowledge of the light of truth, it's like, look, that was just a host body. She is incorporeal in a sense. She's a lightning elemental, but she can't really fully manifest without somebody to kind of impose her runic network on. So she's found a way to survive by embedding her runic network in other living things and kind of puppeteering them until she can find a way to repair the damage that's been done. So what I just did was basically buy us time. It will take her a long time to get out. And the fact that they knew she was here means people who serve her or have been brainwashed by her will come or try and dig under to get to her. So I've bought us time, but she's not dead. Not even remotely close. And based on how pissed off she is and how close she was to victory, I'm imagining it won't take more than about a year or two for her to get out of there. In that time, you guys need to prepare. Reinforce everything that you can on the western vault, because that is going to be where she tries to go at this stage. She has lost too many relics. The only hope she has is the Sword of Destruction. That's it. She gets her hands on that, game over. There is practically nothing we can do about it at that point. And that's all he tells the military. It's like, reinforce the western stronghold, keep the treasure in the western vault safe, and be ready for world-ending amounts of military forces to be amassed as soon as she's free. And there's an amended part for all of his friends. He goes up... This is just a video for the people who've known him, and this is the last we see of Zoge. The rest is all of Arya's influence. But Zoge kind of... And this is him being honest with them. He goes to Amaranthine. It has been such an honor to fight alongside the daughter of Lord Lotus. I could not be happier to have fought alongside you and helped you to grow and find this place. And I hope that you continue on your current trajectory. I'm counting on you to be the kind of person who can survive the trials that are to come and encourage others that no matter how weak they may feel, they too can step up if they just decide in their hearts that they want to. Your desire to change the world just has to outpace the fear you have in your heart, and for that I'm thankful to you, because it was your example that gave me the strength to see this through to the end, even though I didn't want to. And he talks to Olive, it's like, Olive, I understand where you're coming from and why you walk the road you do, and I appreciate your help, because you are right. Sometimes there needs to be some of us who walk the less than savory road so that nobody else has to suffer. It's not fun, it's not glorious, and nobody will ever appreciate what we do. But we don't need them to. Just make sure you don't lose yourself completely in the process. My dear cousin Opal, I am hoping that if all goes to plan, you will have stepped up as a hero. And while you might be the only one who can take over the company, you're the only one who can take over Oceana Incorporated, I want you to know that the actions of nobility may be separate from those of a folk hero, but they are equally as significant. The people idolize and follow their example when it's done correctly, as they do a folk hero. That is what the lesson of our beloved ancestor really is. Oceana did what she did for the good of the people. And while she could not be the folk hero, she was just as idolized, and her legacy still inspired us. So, since my cousin is going to be needing every bit of help she can get, anything you can provide her to rebuild the nation, do that. Absolutely give her your full support, because she's going to need people to build her up. And if you can build friendly relations with Sable's pack, absolutely do that as well. I want to make sure the Northern Continent never again that they never again even think that the Beastkins are anything less than equal to us. Blaze. Don't ever change. I didn't get to know you very much, but you were precisely who I needed you to be at every step of the way on this. And as long as you keep your current trajectory, you are going to be invaluable in saving the world. So don't ever change. Stick to your roots and your ideals and never once doubt who you are. Your brutal honesty is going to be very valuable moving forward. And he hesitates. It's like every single person he's talking to. It's like, it's clear he's dragging his feet. But when he finally gets to Kane, he goes, Kane, I did this because I respected you. You showed me the big difference that can be made through making a sacrifice, and convinced me as to the objective value of being willing to give up something for the greater good. To give up everything, including your own life, for the sake of saving every other life. And at first, I thought I would play hero. I thought I could be like you, but more efficient. It was only when I touched the crystal and understood our enemy that I realized that I couldn't join you on that hero's road. The only role I could play is this. I could play a villain convincing enough that everybody would unite against me. Don't try and defend my reputation. Do not try and tell people that I did this for the greater good. Every horrid act I visited was not so... I'm sure if we took 30 extra years to do this, that we could have found victory with less death. But we did not have that time. Through my actions, I have saved hundreds of thousands, even though tens of thousands die today. I caused all kinds of suffering specifically for tactical efficiency. But I need you to know that I was only able to do this with a clean conscience because I was counting on you and everybody else, to fill in that gap and unite the scraps I leave behind. I did all of this so that the people themselves would look to you all as their heroes and take you seriously. Because we need people to be united swiftly, and we need it to be done while people who still remember the tragedy of the Crimson Keep are drawing breath and fighting for it. I want you all to know that, but especially Kane. All of this was only possible because of your example. And I want you to know that I appreciate everything you've ever done for me. You are my dearest friend, and I am sorry that I've disappointed you. And everybody had to kind of figure out how they wanted to feel about this in their own way. Over the course of the next few weeks, in fact, it's a few months before the whole area is fully excavated, but over the next few weeks, the heroes in particular take their time to process this. Nobody except Ember was told about Aurea. Not a single one. That's also intentional. But after a few weeks of digging the bodies out, helping where they could with the people, trying to deal with the fallout of this horrible tragedy, and helping the young Queen Lucy, who she's like 20 years old, but she's still the young Queen Lucy. They want to help her to properly grow into her queenship. And so, over the course of it, everybody does their mourning, everybody does their cycle. And Opal takes Kane aside and explains that she understands what he was saying before. And that right now, Opal, the hero, isn't needed. Right now, the Northern Continent needs Opal Oceana to step up and do her part. But when that's over, she wants to revisit this with him. And he understands that. Amaranth tries to approach Kane about it, but he just brushes it off, going, Zoge was a monster. My judgment of him was completely off. I gave him a second chance at life, and he used it to end tens of thousands. Without remorse, without regret, and he thanked me for it. So I'm not interested in mourning that right now. I'm good. We're good. Don't worry about me. And Amaranth was half trying to encourage Cain to help her cope with her own feelings on it, because she understands why Zoge did it, but similar to everybody else, she can't condone it. She cannot in good conscience say, my friend committed mass murder to save the world, but she also doesn't think he was a bad guy. She thinks that he saw the most efficient way to save the world, and was willing to be hated by everybody to see it through. And, the more she really thinks about it, the more she chooses to believe that this was Zoge doing the best he could have done. She's not going to defend it, she's not going to say he was a good guy, but she can rest knowing at least that her friend wasn't a vicious monster the way her grandfather had become. He had no hunger, he was just very good at what he was doing. He made a million calculations, and this was the most efficient way to save the world. She doesn't have to agree in order to save people in light of what he did. Olive is completely blindsided by her business partner up and dying, but it renews her resolve. This idea of, yeah, he's right, the math checks out. 10,000 people dead today for 100,000 over the course of 30 years, like that. And guess what? She's going to continue walking this road that he's paved. This chance of, having Olivine, even the murderous anti-terrorists, are helping out in clearing the wreckage and giving support to the public in light of the tragedy, and really helping to build relations, because this is what she wanted. She's still going to be killing these violent terrorists, but she's been actively going if anything that it takes, we are going, just because I'm willing to kill the violent ones doesn't mean I'm just a violent person. So she's having the Olivine organization provide support where she can to civilians. Sable's pack is working in concert, more clean-conscienced with her now, because she's not active, she volunteered this in the public. They know Olivine is doing this, and Sable is able to state, we are not associated with Olivine, but we are glad that those who share our culture are willing to step up and take care of the innocent, right? In the light of this tragedy, I'm glad this tragedy could unite such differentiating and different forces. And it's an odd one, this, because Cain kind of sneaks away from Rosa and the rest, and tries clearing his head. He goes for a walk, because as much as he's pissed off at Zoge, there's something that's bothering him deep down. And it's that during that fight, to fight off the Lightning Queen's forces, he pushed himself further than he should again. He was pushing his body harder, and Amaranth had also called him out on that briefly, but it was she's I understand you were trying to save people's lives, but you've got to stop doing this. You have to value your life. And in the course of that, his thinking began to twist some. And it's not accurate to what really is true of him, but he's convincing himself of something. He's convincing himself that the reason he does that, the reason he throws himself into the heart of battle and the brink of death, he thinks he's starting to like it. That nearly dying is... clearly, he made a promise and he couldn't even keep it, so it has to be some kind of addiction to try and kill yourself. As he's processing this, one of the lieutenants of the Lightning Queen, he's a little bit unfurled, kidnaps Cain. In hopes, his original idea is to try and use him as a vessel for the Lightning Queen, because the Lightning Queen is the Lightning Queen, but she's a being of pure electricity, and he's oddly durable, so therefore we can put her in a healing body and he'll never have to worry about it again. So he kidnaps Cain when nobody else is around, knocks him out, locks him away, puts him someplace he can't get out of. It's basically a pit filled with monsters. He figures, This will keep the kid tired and worn out so he can't escape, gives him something to fight. And since he basically can't die, clearly, we can just keep him in prime fighting condition while we wait for a way to get the Lightning Queen out. And once she's out, we can either put her in him or we can we can let her decide what to do with him. And as this guy is doing that, Perry steps from the shadows and makes clear that, yes, we will make sure the Lightning Queen decides what to do with him. And Perry, he's not himself anymore. His eyes have been replaced with monster eyes, and he is quite unbalanced. He believes himself to be the chosen avatar of fear itself, chosen by the Queen of Lightning, the true goddess of this world, bringing death. And he talks like that all the time. Now, instead of this showmanship and now I'll make a bunny disappear, he's now like, yes, we're going to make a bunny disappear down my throat. We'll listen to it squeal. He's frickin' unhinged at this point. That's what you get when you take somebody out of an insane asylum after massive physical trauma and an open psychosis, and then leave them with the toxic person who's preying upon that psychosis until they snap. So Perry is the unofficial leader of the Lightning Queen's forces until they can recover her. And his madness and devotion to the Lightning Queen means that there will definitely be a violence and destruction based army waiting for her when she comes out, which is kind of what she's going to be needing. And one of the first orders he has as he forces his way to the top is he has his lieutenant, the swordsman from before, who's now been heavily modified with monster parts, begin to amass an army. And it's like, we're going to punish them. We're going to find out what they're up to, and we're going to punish them. We are going to attack these people. That pale boy's associates. We already have one of them down in the prison, being tested constantly by monsters, and if he dies, so be it. But he's shown himself resilient. He'll be fine. The Queen will decide what to do with him. But the cat and the princess, they need to go. They need to be pushed, because they're clearly too dangerous for their own damn good. Look at their friends on the outside. You have Opal stepping up and being whatever, and you have Blaze being her, and then you have that damned singer being a criminal kingpin funding the whole damn thing. It's unacceptable. We're going to punish them. Punish them and everybody they know. But we're going to make it count. We're going to make it hurt. We're going to make sure they can't focus on what we're really up to. They know where the final battle is going to be, but they don't know how we're going to attack, and they don't know why we're attacking. So we're going to make it count. And that sets the stage for the next proverbial time skip, as everybody's kind of maturing into their hero roles, and we have the aftermath and fallout of the horrible tragedy of Avario becoming an active terrorist betraying the land. The military takes the Lightning Queen seriously because of the surveillance footage, and they realize that she's after the vaults because he included that, which he created a replica of the vault, and they want to know where the frickin' light of knowledge is, but he hasn't revealed that. And what gets revealed in the course of the ending of Volume 3 is kind of like a teaser, is that Ember approaches the new Queen Lucy and goes, look, I know that you found it. I know that in the aftermath of all this, you went directly to the vault on his orders and you recovered the staff. And then you probably hid it. I have come to claim it. She goes, and why should I trust you? And she goes, it's simple. Because Avario and I are saving the world. And she shows the queen the video that she was shown. And the queen swears that she will stay out of Ember's way, bury that Ember was ever here, keep her as best she can with her influence. And she grants Ember the Staff of Creation. And Ember disappears into the woodwork between volumes. She's always there, manipulating things in the background. And we see Aurea walking among those, repairing the wreckage, conversing with and interacting with Opal and Amaranth, and just really going, oh yeah, no, I heard about the tragedy. I'm a former member of the Scarlet Order myself, and I was there that day on the Southern Continent, barely escaped with my life, and I've been training myself ever since. So when I saw the broadcast talking about the Lightning Queen, I saw no choice but to step up my game and to come here and help out. And that's her cover story, right? And she's a little bit weird, but they just assume that to be between trauma and social isolation, because she does claim that she was from a lesser noble house from the Southern Continent at the time. But that she's come to, make all the difference in the world. And she, of course, is engendering herself to them. So Ember is now... The end game at the end of Volume 3 is Avario is dead. He is going to stay dead. There is no coming back from this, at least the original version. I don't know if I was going to modify it if I ever rewrote it. But he died a horrific monster. And there's more character beats that happen to kind of build up to that I didn't go into because I was just trying to focus on the main emotional vibes. But there's character beats of Vario truly being not just Zoge, but pretending to be somebody else. But really him embracing his tragic eventual death for the greater good. And it's just this, how can I most efficiently accomplish my task? And what can I do to streamline it so nobody wastes time trying to memorialize me or make me a hero? I want to make clear that anybody who... I want myself to be forever lambasted as a villain. Because we don't have time to lionize me as a hero and have a memorial in my name and a whole big hymn. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for my friends to feel guilty that I somehow died. I need them to know why I did this so they can get the job done, but I need them to know that it's okay that I'm dead. There's no need to second guess it, just focus on saving the world. He doesn't have time for your conscience. Now's not the time. We have greater things. So of the original cast, half of them are out of commission. And half of them have died at least once. We have... The only active players at the end of Volume 3 is we have Amaranth, who is still trying to figure out, how she's going to go about this and what her role moving forward is. But she wants to continue that ideal of building off of the sacrifices of her friends to bring world peace if at all possible, or at least stop the Lightning Queen. And we have Olive, who has been completely frickin'... She's been galvanized in her perspective, and able to indulge her more merciful aspect to further justify it. But we've had this violent edge to her that just keeps getting sharper throughout the series. Because she was sitting there committing frickin' very brutal assassinations in a way specifically to draw attention and to specifically make changes happen. In a way that nobody could frickin' say anything. She got to indulge her more sadistic side. And we revealed that Perry, having vanished, was important because the Lightning Queen had taken him, seen potential in him, brainwashed him into seeing her as a goddess because he was already weird, and he is now using his abilities, tainted by monster parts, to control the organization in her stead until she returns. And he has abused that power to take our talented but otherwise incompetent swordsman that Amaranth had humiliated in Volume 2 and make him into a viable lieutenant. And I wanted Volume 3 to kind of stand on its own 2 feet. I wanted it to be focused entirely on Avario being the bad guy. Nobody else, no other existing bad guys to be the thing. Even if we had new bad guys introduced or characters that were revealed to be villainous, it was going to play second note to Zoge becoming Avario and Avario's big plan to force the world to not only know about the Lightning Queen, but to unite against her. Because he was not going to handle inefficiency here. He was not willing to tolerate inefficiency. It wasn't going to take his sweet-ass time. This needed to be done now. And he was the only one that could make it happen right now. So this is the weakness of an oral summary. And the fact that, like, because Volume 3 is very driven by the character dynamics, if I went into every single planned interaction I had intended, instead of just a few crucial ones, it probably would have ballooned out to like 3 hours. Because there's a lot of interpersonal interactions and a lot of... And I never fully specified and nailed them down, I just had the general idea of each of them. And if enough people ask for it, I'll give the cliff notes on that, but I think I'm mostly going to be saving that for if I ever do write Volume 3, you're going to be able to see all of them in all their glory. You're going to see every character beat played out properly. But this is by far one of the most significant ones. Because you have Kane's survivor guilt and his perpetual inability to die. His sacrifice for Zoge turned into a horrific tragedy where millions are dead and countless others were assassinated in his scheme. So he basically gave up his left arm to protect Hitler, is his perspective. And he's sitting here even questioning his own motivations for continuing down this road because he doesn't feel that heroic motive anymore. He feels himself propelling himself against his own self-preservation and against his own guilt just to stay moving forward, to keep momentum in his life. And then he gets kidnapped and thrown into a pit filled with monsters. So this is where that's where Kane's story is set up for the final volume. Is he's in a moment of doubt. He's lost his resolve, and that's going to be important. Amaranthine is trying to protect her resolve in the face of a dear friend of hers doing some really fucked up crap for the sake of saving the world. And Ember is left to continue Zoge's plan where he left off. And we have the introduction of Araya, who's just now showing up. She's been eyes and ears through Cuvier and Argent, so if I ever write this, her early characterization is going to be through Argent and Cuvier interacting with the heroes, because they are just her eyes and ears. But this is her first proper introduction, and she's still trying to figure out who she is and what her father meant by once she understands why these people keep pushing forward, that she'll understand how to use her abilities. So she's taken that to heart. She knows what she's been programmed to go get the rest of the artifacts, but she wants to make sure she's doing it well with these heroes so she can learn how she's supposed to use her abilities. While Volume 4 is going to have Amaranth as the focus character, for sure, because she's slowly stepping up as a hero and becoming more capable. The fourth volume is where she is left to spearhead everything, and there's a lot of reasons why. And despite that, it's also in the background. The B plot is Araya. Araya learning what it means to be a hero, how she's going to interpret it, and what she's going to do at the end. And it's such a small B plot that I'm going to probably summarize that like in the first 5 to... Knowing me, I balloon things. So the first 20 minutes of the Volume 4 summary is going to be me just briefly, going over Araya's story. Because it's very important. Well, I'm going to have to save Araya's story to the end, because without the context of the rest of the story, it doesn't click. So Araya's story will probably be the last 20 minutes of the Volume 4. But the short version is Araya is intended to be setting up as kind of a counterpoint to Viola. Viola the Lightning Queen has a, I wouldn't say an antithesis, but a response to the question that she brings forward. And the question that Viola brings forward is, like, yeah, she's basically immortal in artificial life, but does that entitle her to play God? Does it give her the right to decide what struggles are and are not worth, putting on or removing from the world? And it's going to be an interesting one when we talk about her in Volume 4. But that's the end of the Volume 3 summary. I wish I had the brain power necessary to go into every single character beat as I did this, but in the broad strokes, it's really the fact that it's the chemistry itself. Even if I were to tell you what conversations were had, it would feel empty if you weren't actually hearing them talk to each other. So the fact that, despite removing those actual conversations, and despite glazing over quite a few of them, I was able to still have this be nearly 2 hours blows my mind. Especially because I remember saying at the climax of everything that it's like, that was at the hour mark, and here we are, nearly doubled after the fact. But that's the Volume 3 summary, and again, there's symbology in the logo I put for this video. I don't know if I would do it for the official release, but there's symbology that's important here. So, anyway, I'm going to end this one here, and I'll see you guys next one.